You're looking live at one of the most controversial faces and mouths in all of the internet, Pearl Davis, live in studio with us today. Pearly things, we've had her on the show before, but we're gonna get to the bottom of Pearl Davis and what's her why? Why is she doing the things that she's doing? Why she says the things she does? And does she really hate the Daily Wire? We gotta get to the bottom of that. Awesome episode of Fearless right now. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Thursday. Oh man, do we have an awesome show for you. Pearl Davis is in town and rejoining us. She's been with us via Skype. She lives over in the UK. We're gonna make the most of her visit here to Nashville and have a long conversation with Pearl. What's her why? We're gonna figure it all out. When we're done with this, you'll have Pearl completely figured out. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Fall in love with beef, chicken, and seafood all over again by subscribing at goodranchers.com. Use my promo code FEARLESS to get a free $119 Heritage ham plus $25 off any box with your subscription. Pearl Davis, of course, the host of the pregame show, almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube, just pearly things every place else. Pearl, why are you here in Nashville?
I did a debate on the Daily Wire. So I did a debate on Michael Knowles' show.
You came all the way from the UK to Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, I was here in the US for something else. I was visiting family, and then I just stopped by.
So you're visiting family in Chicago, and you fly down here to Nashville to hang out with us. Thank you for making the time. And so I'm going to start differently just because it's interesting. You're doing this thing with the Daily Wire, and I can't figure it because I'm old.
Okay.
I'm an old guy, so I can't figure out. Do you like the Daily Wire? Do they like you?
Oh, I love the Daily Wire. I think they're great.
Do they like you?
I think so. I mean, they had me there. Well, their staff was really nice to me.
Jeremy Boring. I read you guys' tweets and I'm like, what's going on?
Well, yeah, he did tell me I was on a dark and dangerous path. And I was really confused because I was like what, from what, tweeting? I was like, that's kind of dramatic. But I like Jeremy. I've never met him, but I met Michael Knowles. I met Candace Owens the other day. I was kind of starstruck because I was like, I watch her a lot, so it was kind of weird to see her. But she's really cool. I like her too.
Well, okay, so yeah. Before I get to Jeremy Boring's tweet, I want to play a clip of these guys talking about you on their backstage. And I think this is Candace and maybe Jeremy, or maybe it's Ben talking about you on their backstage. I think it's SOT number 1.
You know what? This was a 360 moment for me. I'll tell you what. Because I grew up watching them and I'm like, now I'm on the, that's so funny.
Let's play the clip to get the audience up to speed.
Interesting how the meaning of red pill has evolved over the last 5 years to essentially now mean I would say anti-woman. They would say pro-man, but I think it's far beyond pro-man. I think it's decidedly anti-woman in many ways. And you see people who, I think some of them are bad actors who are peddling, but then you also see people like Pearly Things who, I don't know Pearl, I don't know if she's a bad actor or not. I kind of get the sense that maybe she's just a naive person being kind of dragged along out of half desire to be famous and half probably hasn't read a book. And half of that I can relate to.
But tell me, I'm actually missing this. I didn't know the marriage thing, because I'm very pro-marriage.
Pearl made that argument.
Yes.
She made the argument men should not get married.
Okay.
Because the institution...
But are men listening to that? Like, are men saying that men shouldn't get married, or is that a woman saying that a man shouldn't get married?
Well, Pearl, I think that there are examples of men saying it as well, but I think Pearl is sort of one of the prominent voices. A lot of the people
But she's not married.
No.
Yeah, okay, so then that I think that's a huge thing, right? I mean, obviously, it's like listening to people that don't have kids tell you why you shouldn't have kids. Like, it doesn't really work, right? Because when you're telling them about what changes inside of you when you get married, and I think it's very easy to gravitate towards that. That is a feminist message, not to get married. And if her argument is if your quarrel is with the courts, I could agree with you. Like, the courts have done tons of things that are awful that I disagree. I don't even agree necessarily with the courts taking marriage at all. It was a church thing and they took it, and this is how we ended up with gay marriage rights, which I'm very much opposed to.
Well, I would say that a big part of the red pill thing that we would all probably agree with is they diagnose actual problems.
Right.
So when Pearl or other people in the movement come along and say, this is a major problem in society,
Right.
I almost always agree with them.
Yeah.
It's when they get to the prescription that I think that it falls apart. The prescription being, lashing out at women generally, or embracing despair, or not kind of nihilism.
It's a feminist message. I mean,
The
that is
irony-
fundamentally to be anti-family. I don't understand how you could identify as a conservative at all, because everything that the left is trying to do, every Marxist principle, every feminist principle is about disrupting, the family unit. It's what connects everything from the climate change lobby to don't have kids, the planet's going to die, to feminism, be like men, we should be like men. It's all a disruption of the family unit. And if you are now arguing in favor of something that's fundamentally Marxist, then you have to examine whether or not you're conservative at all. That would be my pushback on that.
All right, so that's the daily. What your reaction to any of that?
Well, they mischaracterize what I say a lot. I'm not anti-marriage.
You're not?
I'm not anti-marriage. I just think it's an unfair deal for men today. And objectively, it's a bad deal for men today. Because if me and you were in a business contract, you would never sign a contract where I am paid to leave, where I can destroy your reputation if I leave, where I can legally accuse you of abuse if I leave. I can take your children if I leave. Objectively, it's not a good deal for men. And I don't think that makes me anti-marriage to say, to look at the environment and understand where the guys are coming from.
You've raised a fair point. You're saying that the system doesn't support a fair and equitable, but just a system of fairness. It's so weighted in favor of the woman that you understand why men are far more hesitant.
Well, and there's just not enough wives to go around. There aren't enough women that want to be wives. So what are the men supposed to do? They can't make women be wives that don't want to be. I've interviewed 1,000 women. I could tell you this firsthand.
So hold on for a second, because there may be some nuance here that you may be arguing, but I don't want people to miss. Maybe there are women that want to get married, but they don't want to be wives.
Correct.
Is that what you're arguing?
I would say both. Like women, what can you see what people want to do?
What can you see?
How do you know what people want to do? It's not based on what they say they want to do.
It's based on what they do.
Correct.
Yeah,
and when we have the most choice at 22, we're not picking to get married.
Well, that people, the messaging is that wait until after you experience all these things, or wait until after you've made so much money, or wait until you're so established in your career, wait until you really want to be monogamous. And so you're saying you have the biggest array of options at age 22.
Roughly, yeah.
And people aren't making the decision to get married, and that's a sign that women don't really want to be married.
Yeah, because they're not choosing to get married. I don't put it on. I always notice that whenever women make a decision that's maybe negative or seemingly negative, I see this with abortion too. I see this with sleeping around, that sort of thing. It's always blamed on society instead of what women want to do. And I think that we have agency. I know women that at 22, even in this culture, chose to be housewives. I know women that didn't choose that. So I think you can see what women want to do based on what we choose. And right now in this country, there's no way for a man to have children and them to be legally his, because women can always go to court and fight for custody, and they get it 90% of the time.
So when you say based on actions, people then are the actual boomerang is going to be, well, what about Pearl's actions? Pearl is past age 22,
I know.
and she has not chosen to get married.
Well, when I was 22, I was playing volleyball. That's what I wanted to do. So I didn't have a gun to my head. That's what I wanted to do.
And so are you arguing that you're part of the problem? Or maybe you don't even define it as a problem, but you think like most women, or you're acting like most women, and you don't want
I always say I'm not special. No, I want to get married, but I didn't choose that at 22.
You didn't choose it at 24 either,
It's true.
or 25.
You know,
Right.
it's true.
So when are you going to choose it? Or why haven't you chosen it?
Well, I'm working on it. I'll just say that. I'm working on it.
You can't go, you're dating someone,
Yeah, I'm dating someone. So I don't really, because people harass the people I date, so I try to like,
Yep.
I try to keep it off of, but.
And so you think you might get married sooner than later, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to go into like, the internet's so crazy that I try not to like put too much of that stuff out there, but I really like them, so.
Huh. So that leads me to like your internet personality and the internet work you're doing. It could stand in the way of a relationship? No? Yes?
Yeah, it could.
Does it?
Not now.
You're hesitant to talk or publicize. And again, not that that's part of any relationship.
I just like my relationship life to be private. That's just
I'm sure he
my
does
personal, choice. So
I'm probably the guy probably does too, correct? Mm-hmm. And so, would you make the decision? Could you see yourself making the decision? You know what? I got to give up this being an internet personality because
when I have kids, the kids come first. I believe that. So, and when you get married, I think your marriage should come first. So,
the man should come first.
Yeah, that too.
And so, would you marry a man that would say, "Hey, Pearl, I don't want you doing Pearly things. I just need Pearl Davis. I need Mama Davis at home," or?
Well, I'm not in that position, but if I was, yeah, I think that comes first. So
tell me this: what is, and this is for me, the old guy. I don't get what the red pill movement that they're talking about and the manosphere, are they the same thing?
No, I would, because I'm pretty sure the manosphere term came from a feminist. I'm fairly certain that came from a feminist, but it's tough because people use it now. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know how to answer the question, but.
What's the difference between the red pill movement and the manosphere?
They're similar, I would say, but red pill, it's basically guys trading notes.
That's what the red pill movement is.
At its core, and that's the hard thing, because I don't know if you have this in conservatism. Everyone argues over, like, are you a real conservative? Are you a real red pillar? So it's basically guys trading notes on women. So they all get together and they say, okay, like women like these type of dates maybe, or like these type of dates are effective. This type of strategy is like effective with women, and they come together, trade notes. And that's what it is, like at its core. It came with like blog posts in the early like 2000s before I was even here.
And so, and again, this is all like new to me. The red pill.
Yeah.
When I hear red pill, I think politics. And
Yeah,
so
I
maybe
know.
I hear it the wrong way.
I know, that's the hard thing, because people use it in so many different ways that there's so many arguments over what it is that I hate this question, because no matter what I say, people argue with me over it.
I'm a blank slate.
No, I
because
know.
what
But
it,
it's basically like in the early 1990s, 2000s, like men came together and traded notes. So this started with like pickup, so like mystery, the game. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. They found out.
For 1 second, just for foundational.
Yeah.
When I think of red pill, I think of the movie The Matrix.
Yeah, I know.
I thought that's where it came from.
Yeah.
You take the red pill or the blue pill, and the red pill was to live in truth, and the blue pill was to...
Some people use it like that, and that's why everyone argues over what it means. So I hate this question because I know however I answer it, people will always argue over what it means.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I
You're
know.
talking to a blank slate.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
know.
me and you talking. I'm trying to understand.
Okay, when I think of the red pill, okay, I've never seen The Matrix.
Oh, you?
No, I haven't seen it. But I know it's men in like the 90s, 2000s time got together on the internet and started comparing notes. So, for example, one thing they teach in the mystery method is like peacocking. So if you wear something very like extravagant, basically like women come up to you and talk to you. So they trade notes, they tell each other that. They might say, oh, this bio works on like your dating app profile, that sort of thing.
Wow.
But that's like at the core. And so there's maybe analogies or like patterns they figured out with women that they can kind of make generalities. And then everyone comes in and gets mad at the generalities if they apply to them. So like, for example, women that travel tend to be more promiscuous. That's something, but not, you always have to preface like not everyone, but they find like patterns, right?
Huh.
And that's like at its core. But then there's people that like, make content around it that aren't necessarily in the core.
Who's the most prominent or successful red pillar?
I think Myron Gaines.
Myron Gaines.
Yeah.
He's got a
Rollo,
YouTube channel?
Yeah, Myron and Rollo, I think, are probably the most influential. They're really, really smart guys.
Rollo,
Tomasi, yeah.
Tomasi.
Yeah.
Rollo, okay. And so he's a red pillar, and then so again, they're helping me understand.
Glenn's really good too. My friend Glenn's here today.
Glenn
Yeah.
is a red pillar
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Huh, we should have maybe mic'd Glenn up because I would love an explanation of the red. So when I think of the manosphere,
Yeah.
I think of Kevin Samuels.
Yeah.
Is he a red pillar?
He would say, and this is where it gets really confusing because I know at one point they weren't too happy he was taking the material and using it, Kevin Samuels. And I know at one point Kevin Samuels said he wasn't red pill, but a lot of the talking points that he used were like from this core group of guys, basically.
Rollo.
Yeah, he's one of them.
And who was the other guy you referenced?
Myron is one of them. Ryan Stone is another one. Aaron Clary. Thor.
So how long have these guys have been around since the 90s, you're saying? Or?
Some of them. I mean, some come sooner, some come later. But it started, it was 90s, right, Glenn? Early 2000s. Yeah, So Suave. So it's basically started with blog posts. And it was started as like writing online, where men come together, they compare notes on women in order to improve their strategy and their options. So they get together, and then some people like, for example, there's, and then some people make material around it, but they wouldn't really be in that core group. So even when they call me red pill, I'm like, I wouldn't even put myself as like a true red pillar because I'm not in the core like group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So walk me through then, how would you define yourself? And it doesn't need a label. We'll just...
Ambassador. Yeah, I don't know. I just give my opinions, and then people label me one way or another. I just say I'm Pearl.
What's the foundation of your opinions?
Oh gosh, so many came from interviewing. Because some stuff I thought they were wrong. Like I started reacting to red pill content.
So you kind of see yourself as like a relationship journalist. Perhaps.
Yeah, that's actually a decent way to put it. Yeah, because I started reacting to red pill. So I would react to like guys giving relationship advice. Have you heard of Alpha Male Strategies?
No.
He was one of them. I used to react to Rollo a lot. I used to react to Kevin Samuels, and some stuff I thought they were wrong about. And so I ended up, when I went to London, I interviewed 1,000 women on dating and relationships, and I found out that 95% of the stuff, they were correct.
that the red pill guys were
correct.
accurate on.
They were more accurate, yeah.
And what gave you the instincts, or what made you want to do that? Just because you're young and maybe you're trying to figure relationships out, and that's just, you just went down that path?
I just thought it was really interesting. You know, because you never, as a woman, we're constantly fed media that's from our point of view. And you see this like women's worldview crushing at like 35, right? When they hear, you know, men don't really care about your career. Men don't really like combative women. They don't really want women that are demanding princess treatment. You know, a lot of the female dating advice is really bad, right? And so it was so interesting to me to hear the men's point of view, because really you don't see media like that in society. And when we do have it, it's, you know, it's demonized, it's ridiculed. They're told, you know, it's suppressed. You know, I mean, I'm demonetized on YouTube right now.
You make an excellent point, because let's say like Oprah Winfrey spawned a bunch of disciples that would get TV shows, and they'd all preach from the empowered black woman or just woman point of view. And then even if a man got a show, a talk show or whatever, he preached from more of a feminized male point of view. He didn't come at it from the polar opposite of Oprah and people like Gayle King or whoever else.
Well, and I realized men have to lie to us. They have to. They have to, you know, filter the truth, because most men will lose too much if they tell us the truth. You know, they go to work, they say the wrong thing, human resources, you know, cuts them. You know, they say the wrong thing online, they could also lose their job. And you know, they say the wrong thing to a woman on a date, you know, she won't see you again. So I realized that men constantly in this society are forced to lie to us and filter the truth.
You're accurate. That's a very, because it's no different than the argument that I make about like the media and corporate America is training everybody to lie to black people. And so everybody has to go on the internet or go on camera at CNN or wherever and say, man, the police are just out here randomly killing black men. Man, every time I step outside, I may get killed by the police. Everybody knows that's a lie and that's not reality.
Yeah.
That's what you have to say in order to survive in those environments. And you're arguing that in order to survive in the work environment, in a relationship environment, you have to sit around and pretend, you know what, baby, I want to hear everything. You're just as smart as me. You're as smart, and I just have to put this, we're equals.
Yeah.
And we really don't believe that. And that's fascinating, because that is a very difficult balancing act of, I have to lie all the time and not say what I really think. So that leads me to, and I know I asked this question in my head many times this morning when I was thinking about this interview, and so I can't remember if I've already asked you, but what is your why? What's your goal with Pearly Things and just being an internet personality? For me, I'll give you an example. For me, I'm sitting here doing this show and doing the whole Fearless thing because I'm trying to create room for people to say the truth. And perhaps that's your goal as well, but people think you're just doing it to be controversial.
I would say when I got into it, I just enjoyed it and I thought it was interesting. Now I would say my goal is to create media that's more honest and depicts actual reality, not what we want reality to be.
That's a very worthy goal.
Yeah. I'll say it'll never happen in my lifetime where it's normal. I don't think it'll ever happen. But I created the Audacity Network. So I started a network where I signed people to it and like we manage them, like that sort of thing. And
other women, or it doesn't matter?
Women and men. So I have guys and girls that I've signed, And I want to create even movies again. You know, when is the last time we had like a James Bond type of movie that was actually, you know, it's a masculine male lead, unapologetic. There's some hot chicks in it, you know. It's like they're ruining everything. They're ruining all the movies. They're ruining all the media. And it just makes people live in delusion. Like, it's not real. So it's a funny thing that happens when you figure out like what's true about the world. It's like you want to tell everyone. But sometimes people aren't ready for the conversation.
They're not. And
I'm sure you have that with like the race stuff.
Yes.
Like where you know what's true, but if you go, it's tough because if you go to people, some of them are just not ready to hear it, and it's not ready to be mainstream yet.
I'm gonna give you a great example just in the past 24 hours, because yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of the angel Breonna Taylor. She died 4 years ago. And so I've been arguing for all 4 years that, like, no, her boyfriend shot a cop, and her boyfriend and her were laying in bed, and they heard trouble at the door, and they both got out of bed. He actually, I think, put her pants on backwards, but they both got out of bed and went to go see what the trouble at the door was, and this guy shot a cop, and then the cops fired back. I've been arguing for 4 years, and I did it again yesterday. I was like, what man thinks there's trouble at the door and says, baby, you come with me? What man does that? And why can't we have this conversation? Like, this is a coward. Yeah. What world is he living in?
Oh, sorry. That's just funny.
He got his woman killed because he wasn't man enough to go, baby, you stay here. I'm going to go see what the trouble is at the door. And so that's reality.
Yeah. Well, even when I worked because before I did this, I worked in corporate America. I did copier sales. And there was a black guy that we worked with, and they couldn't fire him. Like, he wasn't doing anything for like 6 months, but they had to give like extra reprimandation because they didn't want to deal with a lawsuit. I mean,
Here in America?
Yeah, this is in America. I mean, they couldn't say that, but he wasn't doing anything, so everyone knew.
And so you say things like that, and
then they'll get mad.
Yeah, and literally, you're a redheaded white woman.
I know.
That you know, you got white privilege, and that's racist.
I know,
clearly. I mean,
but
you're racist.
You know, that's what they say. But it's a fine line trying to tell people what they're ready for, but also being honest. And I would just rather be honest. And that's how I live my life. I'd rather be honest even if it offends you. Sometimes I'm wrong. I'm not right all the time. I'll say that. You know, I'm not saying I'm the end all be all of truth. Sometimes I'm wrong, but all I can really say is the way I view the world based on my experience and what is true. So
I'm a little bit surprised. I'm going to circle back to where we began. Mm-hmm. Why are you having, not you, I'm trying to evaluate the situation. This isn't directed at you, but you're standing on truth. You're saying uncomfortable truths. It seems like you and the Daily Wire should get along, and that.
Oh, I like them overall. I think I actually talk about them a lot because I like them, and I think they need to. And I know it's funny, everyone's gonna say, who are you to tell them? So they can take this opinion or leave it. But I think they are going to miss a lot of men, and you're gonna have a lot of men not voting because of the way they go about things, because they do not care about men's issues. I was just on the show with Michael Knowles, okay? Yep. This is gonna come out later this week. Yep. In this debate, he argued that a man shouldn't be able to divorce even if a woman lies about the paternity of the child. You are going to lose a lot of men with that. He also argued that you shouldn't have a prenup even if a man works his entire life to build something, And you can marry the wrong woman, she can destroy it. It's immoral to have a prenup. When this is the way you're going about things, I think there's going to be a lower voter turnout because of the way, I would argue, they simp for women. This is what I would argue. I don't mean this to be insulting to them. I don't think they take it that way. I think they take it as a debate, but that's sort of the way I view it.
Well, aren't there more, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
this as a negative, I'm just saying it factually. Aren't they more establishment? Aren't they, I don't see them a part of America First or MAGA or any of that. They're more establishment.
Well, yeah, but you still have to focus on facts, and that's the whole thing. It's facts don't care about your feelings until it goes against my religion. And that's what I noticed with them. It's like, it doesn't matter if I say, hey, objectively, this is a bad deal for men. They'll say, but my religion. And it's like, okay, I'm Catholic too, but when I've actually interviewed men on the other side of divorce. And that's something, because my whole documentary that I've been putting together is called Why Don't Men Want to Get Married Anymore? Because my parents have been married 30 years. They built a business together. I have 9 siblings. And so they always try to paint me as anti-marriage. But I've seen men on the other side. And I've seen men and I'm sure you have, there's no way any man over the age of 50 has seen a woman they thought would never divorce their husband that did it anyway and did it in a malicious way. If they took 100 marriages, 13 men would be maliciously divorced. 13 men, okay? So that means that's not just child support or alimony. When I say malicious, that means she's trying to alienate you from your children. She's putting you on absurd amounts of child support, alimony, and the biggest thing is the kids. So if I took any pill where I had a 13% chance, because that's death to a lot of men, starting over at 50, where she takes your house, your kids, she ruins your reputation, calls you an abuser, and now you have to pay for another man to raise your kids. That's death. And men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after divorce. And what the tradcons will do is wave, at men and say, well, but get married anyway, but religion. Well, I've seen good Christian women completely ruin a man in divorce court. And, I just talked to a guy today. He had 7 children, met a girl at 22 in church. He was a pastor. She did the exact same thing. And so if I'm seeing this from Christian women, and I'm in London, I have the most international perspective. I talk to men from Africa and women. I talk to men and women from Africa, Italy, France. And what the tradcons will do is say, but my religion, but let's go return to traditionalism. What have we conserved? I didn't even know a sex worker when I was 22. I'm 27 now. I know more OnlyFans chicks than I can count. They're everywhere now. Are you guys blind? You don't see what's happening on Twitter? It's becoming crazy. And they almost want us to put our blinders on and pretend this isn't happening and tell men, return to traditionalism. And my argument is not what I wish to happen or want to happen, but this is the way the world is going. And if you don't make these laws more fair, regardless of what Pearl says, men look at the benefits and the costs of a decision naturally anyway, and the costs are going to be too high, and the benefits aren't going to be there. So it doesn't matter what I say. I'm saying this is what's happening. I'm trying to focus on the reality of the situation.
So my argument would be anybody using religion to hide from facts and truth is misusing religion. And so I discount those guys. My faith is not adversarial to truth at all. And so I can handle all truth because, again, there's a book called the Bible that spells out all of the truth and what needs to happen. And so where you finally landed in your argument is I can use my religious faith to argue we need to change these laws and make marriage more fair. Not, hey, we all should keep doing this system that doesn't work. We need to, no different than how the left are trying to change the system. we should be trying to change the system and make it more fair and make it so that marriage actually makes sense for both parties and there's incentives for both parties to stay married and to stay true to each other and live up to their responsibilities.
And I want to give a couple laws that I would say are unfair to men, because that's always the first thing. What laws, okay? One thing in California is if you have a child with a woman, right? Let's just say you get married, you have a kid with a chick, you're in California. If you find out that kid's not yours over the age of 2, you are still on the hook for child support for life. You are still in California, and it's not just California, but I interviewed a guy who actually calculated child support for California, so he used to deal with these cases. And the reason it is the law is written that it's the best interest of the child. So it's the best, and what is the best interest of the child generally? The best interest of the mother. Another sexist law that I would say is openly sexist, and a lot of people are under the impression that before 1950s, the laws favored men. Not true. In the 1800s, the tender year doctrine was passed. The tender years doctrine is an openly sexist law. It says that kids under the age of 7 are better with the mother. There's no evidence that supports that. The most likely person to abuse the child is the mother. The most likely person to kill the child is the mother. And people always want to give what I call an excuse, which is the mother is with the child more. But if that was true, then you would see the rate of child abuse going down because women have been spending less time with kids, but the opposite is happening. So
I'll give you an example as a man of faith. There's statistics that show that if the father goes to church, the kids are more likely to go to church and embrace Christianity and embrace faith than if the mother takes the kids to church. And so, you know, I wish I was, and maybe Glenn, you could help me out here. I wish I had Virgil or TJ in here, but there's actual scripture that men are supposed to disciple the children and teach the children, and we've got it all backwards. We've handed, the entire educational system has been handed over to women.
Correct.
And if we actually wanted good results, we'd hand it over to men.
Isaiah 3 talks about what happens when women have control.
Yeah.
The world goes in a mess. And then Isaiah 4 tells us the consequences of that. All these women are going to be coming to men, begging for them to take them and save them from their shame.
And women control the church now too. That's a conversation tradcons aren't ready to have. The women control the church. You know why? Okay, because what happened?
For 1 second, for just for clarity, define tradcons.
Traditional conservatives. So it's
Who are they? Give me some
usually when I think of tradcons, I think of the Daily Wire first. That's who I think of. But
traditional conservatives.
Yeah, there's some at blazetv I could think of. Like I don't know your stuff as much, but I think of like Lauren Chen. I would say she's a tradcon. I would say Matt Walsh, tradcon. You know,
it's more. Name 2 people I really like.
Yeah, I like them. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal, but they're wrong. And that's what I'm trying to get at.
They're wrong about what?
They're wrong about marriage being a good deal for men in 2024 because they'll keep arguing, do it anyway. When if we took your religion out of it, there is no logical way.
No. Hold for 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
There is no such thing as marriage without the Bible and religion. See, marriage was stolen from the church and from religion and handed over to government. So again, it's like you can't take. My parents are Joyce and Jimmy. You can't take them away. They can't be your kids. I can't be your kid.
But the problem is there's no way. But there's no way for a man to be married in this society and not be entered into that system. So there's no way for a man to have children and the woman not be paid to leave. There's ways you can lower your risk, but it still favors the woman. And even if you get married to a religious woman in church, it happens all the time. I interview men on the other side. You know, they still oftentimes will leave. So that's my point, is religion doesn't change the facts. And now, like, I think they used Catholics when I was on the show. The Catholic divorce rate's like 25%, 30%. So it's kind of like, you got to fix your church first.
I believe we certainly have to fix our church, but it's hard for me to follow an argument that Christian faith is the problem with marriage.
No, that's not what I said.
That's not the problem. It's the way it's being practiced.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the problem.
The execution, we're fallen men, we're fallen people, we've been emasculated, we bought a bunch of lies, we're afraid to be leaders, we're afraid to draw a line in the sand, we're afraid to say, you understand, if I'm not here and we let all this barbarianism that's going on, you're going to die, you're going to suffer, you need me. We've let women just run wild.
Correct.
You don't need us. Okay.
Correct.
You really want to play this out?
Yeah, but that's my point, though. It's not attacking the religious institution. It's saying in 2024, it is objectively not a good deal for men.
Got you. I
Yeah.
guess the only thing I'm arguing or begging you or asking you to do is because people are mispracticing the religion, just leave religion out of it and say, hey, these guys are just say they're misapplying, they don't really understand, they're not bold enough to.
Well, I can't leave religion out of it because the church is doing the same thing. And that's the problem is, I was arguing with a woman recently who was telling me, I was telling her, trust your husband, okay? You're supposed to submit to his authority. This is a God-fearing Catholic woman. And I said, look, you just need to trust your husband. And they always use the Bible to control their husband. So she said, well, I can't trust him. I can't trust him because he's not following God according to you. And it wasn't even like I don't want to, it was her personal thing, but what we were talking about had nothing to do with following God. So I'm like,
Everything has to do with following God, but I hear you.
No, but what she had to listen to was not immoral. That's my point. That's my point. Or he's not protecting me. He's not loving, and so even in the church, women use scripture to control their husbands.
No, no question about it. But they use it, those women are able to do that because their husband isn't discipling them in the faith. And she knows the scripture better than him. And she's running no?
Oh, no, those... Yeah, that's well, when she goes to the pastor, when she goes to the pastor and the pastor tells her the same thing. And there's so much simping that goes on in the church. It's crazy.
I completely agree with
There's
that.
a reason young men aren't going. And so what keeps happening, what I keep seeing is them shaming the men for leaving, shaming the men for not leaving their wives. I have never gone to a church and heard a sermon about, I don't know, it's immoral. You're actually not a good wife. You're being what do they call it, a Jezebel? You're being a Jezebel if you don't sleep with your husband. What they'll do instead is say, oh, men, the YouTube, the corn addiction. Why are these?
Porn, you mean porn?
I don't know if you could say it on YouTube.
Porn?
Yeah, well, I try not to on my channel, but I'm demonetized, so don't take my advice.
I probably will be.
Okay.
Trust me, they don't like me.
Yeah, so they'll say the porn addiction, but the real problem is women not sleeping with their husbands. That is far more common. Why are the men watching it? It's because the women use sex as a way to control their husbands. It's so common. And I've never heard a sermon on it. And I've been to churches in London, and then the trad cons, that's what they do. They come in and say, Pearl's hasn't been to enough churches. I'm like, I've lived in Germany, I've lived in London, I've lived in, I've Chicago, I've been to churches all over. And I see the same patterns of behavior. And because it was funny, I was arguing with this one guy, and he was telling me that I was wrong. He's like, no, the churches aren't like this. Guess what happened to his pastor? His special church that was so different, 'cause that's what they'll say. And it's the same thing they do to women. Whenever something's true, people always answer, not all women are like that, or not all churches are like that. They always say not all when it's true, generally. And so, yeah, his pastor, I can't remember if he got in trouble for cheating or his wife left him or something, but it was the exact same thing happened. 50% of pastors admit to having an affair. So if you guys are gonna come in, real affair, 40.
20% admitted to
Yeah.
having an affair, and 20% admitted to having an emotional
Sorry,
affair,
40%.
and then 10% admitted to lying on the result.
So it's like if you guys want to say, men, come to church, lead your home, it's like, well, why don't we fix the church first? You know, because I'm going, you know, I hear from men that church makes their wives worse. This is a common trope. Like, if church women were so good, if they had an abundance of wives in church, men would be lined up. Men would be so excited to go. But, you know, we have the phrase church girl. Why is that a negative connotation now? And men are not responsible for the reputation that we've built, because then they'll say, oh, they're just making this up. Really? How do you make up a phrase that, you know, everyone, it's very common all over society?
Let me for clarity and for just a bit more transparency, Glenn is here with you.
Yeah.
Who is Glenn? What's your relationship with Glenn? Explain to me and the audience.
So Glenn's my producer when I'm in the U.S. And Glenn actually, he used to be a pastor, right? Yeah, and so a lot of this, like what I'm talking about, it happened to him. He was a pastor. And he's in the Red Pill space too. He has a channel, and he's basically an encyclopedia when it comes to the Bible. Like, he could quote scripture off the top of his head, and he's firsthand experienced some of the feminism that's in the church.
So I don't want to put Glenn on camera, guys, but I do want to give Glenn a microphone if we have one. Leave him where he is, and just so, because I don't want to confuse the audience. If Glenn's gonna, and it's not bothering me, and I'm not saying that, but I just want people to be able to make sure we can hear him. So we may take a break here at some point so that we can put a microphone on Glenn. Don't want him on camera, but I do want to make sure we can hear him clearly if he needs to chime in and say something. Now I want you to further elaborate on Glenn. Some people will say, because some people have a suspicion like, Pearl's got handlers. Oh, God. People are feeding Pearl talking points.
No, not this.
Hold on, hold for 1 second.
Yeah,
so they'll watch this interview and say, hey, there's a guy that is shouting things or giving or helping Pearl with her talking points or whatever. What is Glenn? Does he help you with your talking points? Are there other guys helping you with your talking points or?
Oh, there's people that I would say mentor me.
Yeah.
You know, so there's people that are smarter than me that I look up to. Nobody tells me what to say though. And there's definitely things I say that people advise me against saying, like everybody. No, nobody tells me what to say. Sometimes I would probably do better. But no, he's just really smart when it comes to the biblical stuff. So he's just a friend of mine. Yeah.
So I do need to ask this, and again, I told you when we were off camera, I have no ill intent with any of my questions.
Okay.
I like you, Pearl, and I'm really starting to get a better understanding during this conversation. Are you dating Glenn? Have you ever dated Glenn?
No, he's married.
Gotcha.
He's married.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to take care of some business, and then we're going to stop down because I do want to get a microphone on Glenn. But let me take care of a little business, talk to you guys about my great friends at Cardio Miracle. I look forward to every time I share the good news of our sponsor and friends from Cardio Miracle. The team at Cardio Miracle are patriots, health, liberty, advocates, and passionate about the well-being of the unborn. They are investing every day in nitric oxide and vitamin D3 research to help veterans with PTSD, brain injuries for athletes, surgery recovery, giving elderly hope and mobility, and supporting those with chronic illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, and other challenges many are facing. More important, Cardio Miracle. I drink it every day. I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 months. It's been having an amazing impact on me. Yesterday, and I wish, David, I need you to shout loud enough so you're picked up by my mic. But yesterday, David, one of my top producers here with Fearless, he shared with me, he's been taking Cardio Miracle because I keep a lot of it here at the studio and everybody's taking it. David takes blood pressure medicine, and Cardio Miracles had an incredible, David, you know what, just walk over here and so you're closer to my mic. Because because I don't want y'all to think that I'm lying or capping or, any of this. David, what's going on with you in Cardio Miracle?
So I've been taking Cardio Miracle for about 2.5, 3 months now. Was pre-diabetic. My blood sugar is down. My blood pressure is at a rate of about an 18-year-old athlete at this point, and I think I'm going to completely be off blood pressure medicine before long.
Wow. This stuff works. I can't thank you, David. I can't recommend it any higher. I think I told you guys earlier this week, or maybe I shared we do a prayer call on Wednesday. I can't remember. My mother and what's been going on with her and her blood work after taking Cardio Miracle. Guys, cardiomiracle.com/fearless. Use my promo code fearless to get 10% off your first order, or you can subscribe and save 15% off with free shipping. That's cardiomiracle.com/fearless. I'm telling you, this stuff tastes great and it actually works. Need you guys in the Fearless Army to get on it so you can be here with me for a long time. Now back to our great friend here, Pearl, who I'm just fascinated by our conversation. And I just want to do a quick mic check on Glenn. Glenn.
Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
So now, Glenn, that's not an invitation to jump in every 5 minutes. But
be quiet.
If you're feeling something and we need to hear it now, we'll be able to hear Glenn. So how did you and Glenn connect?
How did we originally? You came on a stream of
I came on one of your panels with Rollo.
Yeah, I couldn't. There was always something about the church that kind of made me. I couldn't figure out how feminism was in the church. I couldn't describe why or how. And I don't know, Glenn kind of put a lot of the pieces together for him. He helped me, he pointed me to different scriptures, so.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to put a little context around what Pearl is saying, because I know some people will jump to conclude, well, clearly he's got puppet strings on and blah, blah, blah. But let me give an explanation. I'm 56, Pearl.
Yeah.
And we got a guy that works with me, TJ Moe. TJ, I think, is 32. We got a pastor that comes on the show, Anthony Walker. I believe Anthony's 40 or 41. We got a pastor, Virgil Walker, that comes on the show. I believe Virgil's 52. David is probably early 40s. Luke is 19. Got a kid, Jack, that's 22. I seek religious advice and advice from all of them. I'm the oldest person connected to the show. People watch this show, and on Wednesdays we do this thing, Tennessee Harmony, where it's basically Anthony and Virgil on with me, and I seek their guidance and perspective on virtually everything, because I respect them as further along in their journey and with a knowledge of the Bible. And no one says to me, no one of any credibility says, oh, Whitlock's controlled or manipulated, or these guys got puppet strings on him, because one, I've been at this a long time ago. Most people recognize I'm totally uncontrollable. And so I think for myself, I'm looking at a young woman and I'm sort of clearly some guy or something, because I've thought these thoughts about you. And that's probably my sexism or just bias and thinking well, why couldn't Pearl be just like me? And what I'm finding out in this conversation, Pearl's just like me. She's gonna take good advice from wherever she can get it. And so I respect that. I just want to give the audience and the viewers that bit of perspective, is that maybe you should back up, and maybe it's actually wise that you surround yourself with people that know a bit more about you and check some of your thoughts with them. It's actually wise, and it's what men and smart people have been doing forever. So I wanted to throw that bit of context in. So you're for marriage, you're working to empower truth, you're in some sort of relationship with a guy that, you're hoping good things will happen happen in that relationship. And so what would you tell that guy if you're sitting there like, marriage is a bad deal, wouldn't you also be telling that guy it would be a bad deal with me too? Maybe we shouldn't
I'm
get married.
special. No, I'm just special. I'm different. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, okay, one, I don't care about getting married with the state, or I don't care about a prenup. Like that stuff just doesn't matter to me, you know.
Have you ever interacted with any Hebrew Israelites, or just these Israelites, these black dudes that say they're the real Jews?
No.
Or
I've never heard of that.
there's two different groups. There's
Okay.
Israelites, black Hebrew Israelites say that, hey, we're the real Jews, and then there's just other Israelites. Many of them black, but they're white and all that other stuff. And they're like you. They're like, man, I want the state completely out of my marriage and anything that I'm doing. And they're moving off. They're separating themselves. Mm-hmm. They're coming out from among them in their view. It sounds so, and I say that because I have a kid that I adopted symbolically years ago. He's a Ball State football player, broke his neck, and now Dante's I think 38 years old, and he leans that Israelite direction, and he's in a relationship. They got 3 kids, but he will not get married by the state. And so I'm familiar with this mentality, and so that's kind of your mentality.
Yeah, well, I think men should protect themselves. I mean, I know my character, so like I know I wouldn't leave, right? But I can understand. I've interviewed 1,000 women, Jason. I understand why men want to protect themselves, and I think they should. So I don't really. I mean, if you have a good relationship, who cares about getting the state involved? Who cares about a prenup if you're going to stay?
Do you still you mentioned you were raised Catholic. Mm-hmm. Do you still consider yourself a Catholic? Do you consider yourself a Christian?
No, I'll tell you what. I've recently, I would have said yes to that maybe like a month ago or 2 months ago. But I've recently started reconsidering Catholicism. And the reason being is that, and I'd like to say, this is not definitive. I've noticed patterns in society and in history. And one pattern I've noticed is that we tend to elevate women higher than they should be and say they're more special and awesome than they are. And recently I've had the thought, wondering if the Catholic Church did that with Mary. But I'm not sure. So I still go to Catholic church now, but it's kind of, I can't really get that thought out of my mind recently.
So let's put Catholicism on the side. Do you consider yourself a Christian, a believer in God?
Yeah. No, I believe in God.
So I'm going to change up topics a little bit, move away from the religious aspect. Why have you been, what's going on with you in YouTube? Why have you been demonetized?
Oh, I said yeah, I said you might want to bleep this out on YouTube so you don't get demonetized. Yeah, I was talking about how I play volleyball still.
Yeah.
So I have a game I have a game Saturday I have to be back for. So I play volleyball in England. I play semi-pro. Yep. And I saw an entire team full of on like a volleyball tournament in the spring. And I was talking about it on a show. And so they demonetized me. And because I said that men are smarter than women. And I spoke to YouTube and I said if I could statistically back that up with, I can't remember the exact number, but there's like 50 high IQ men for every 1 high IQ woman, something like that. They said they didn't care, but it's hate speech because I said and that, so they demonetized me. So I haven't made money since like November.
And how problematic, I mean, obviously it's a problem. How problematic?
Oh, it's super problematic. It's been really hard.
And so is there a solution on the horizon?
I mean, I hear back from YouTube in the next week. We just made a website, so we're gonna put all my content behind a paywall that we built, and then basically people have to sign up for memberships and then go on that.
And so there's
And
that.
ads too. But I mean, there's ways to offset it, but it hurts a lot when they demonetize you, so.
And so there's the issue you've had with I call them the alphabet mafia.
Yeah.
Is how your relationship or interviews or engagement with Nick Fuentes, is that any part of the problem?
Oh gosh, I'll tell you what, that was, not that I know of. There's people that speculate that it possibly could have been, and they didn't say that, but as far as I know, no, that had nothing to do with it.
So I know Nick Fuentes a little bit. I mean, I don't know him, but I know of him, and I know that Bryson Gray, rapper, is friends with him. Why is he supposed to be anti-Semitic and racist against black people as well? Is that?
I didn't find him to be. That wasn't my experience with him. Based on the interview that I did with him, he explained his opinions in depth to me. That wasn't what I took away. Oftentimes when I go on interviews, they want me to speak for every single thing he said ever. I don't know what he said before that interview. I don't know what he said after that interview. But when I interviewed him, it was a positive, it was a good interview. He was polite to my staff, which at the time was 100% black. So, you know, I didn't have a problem with him.
Huh. So you just said something interesting. I thought your team that works with you in the UK is predominantly black?
Is it still? At the time it was. Now it's maybe like half or maybe 60%. I'd have to like count because there's like 7, so it's like, it's like half. It's like half and half now.
And so that is something that comes across to me, at least as a 56-year-old guy, is that, and I told you this the last time I interviewed, or the first time I interviewed, I was like, I think she got some black friends or is dating a black guy, and she's somewhat influenced by black culture, I guess, for lack of a better description. Is that accurate?
Well, where I live, there's just a lot of people from Africa in London, so, you know.
Do you enjoy London? Do you want to come back here?
No,
to America?
I want to come back. There's some things I like about London, like the history and like that sort of thing. But I see myself long term in the U.S.
What's the cultural difference, or what's the difference between America and London?
I'd say people dress better in London. That's one thing. But I've seen a lot of the problems that mass immigration has had in London. Personally, I've seen the benefits too. You know, some do work for me, but I've also seen the problems that come with it. And I didn't really have an opinion on immigration before I lived in London, but I've just kind of, like, I'll see where I live, people that immigrated to the country protesting for free things. It doesn't really make sense to me. You know, like I bring like my vlogging camera out sometimes, and like one girl was literally from, I think, Pakistan, and telling me she wanted free housing. What? You're not, that's like me, I'm an American. It's like me going to England and saying free housing. And the city's just gotten a lot like dirtier. And it's really expensive. There's like pros of it too, but I just overall, it's a little crowded for me personally. I grew up on 40 acres, it's kind of crowded, but I went to play volleyball, so that was like my goal when I went there.
And so you plan to move back to America?
Yes, at some point, I just don't know when.
So I'm not trying to do a sneak attack and get back into your personal business, but that would make me think your boyfriend is an American.
Yeah.
Does he live in here or UK?
U.S.
Gotcha. And so I do want to circle back to, I think you've argued that it should be illegal for women to get a divorce.
Oh, I changed my mind on that. Yeah, I changed my mind. I know. I can change my mind sometimes.
All right, so how come or what?
Oh, because I think some women make their husbands so miserable, they should be able to leave. So, yeah, I just don't think it would be practical. I think it'd be hard to pass.
What about your position that women should stay in a marriage even if the man cheats? Did you say that?
Well,
And if so, why?
when I first got into Red Pill content, one of the first things that I heard was from Kevin Samuels saying high-value men cheat. And I fought this tooth and nail because my dad's a high-value man, like by the characteristics that Kevin Samuels at the time described. My dad's never drank. He's never, he's a very clean guy. He never did that. But what he was describing is that under the age of 40, things are different. The number one way that people are meeting is on dating apps and online. We swipe right 5% of the time, maybe up to 20% if you're generous. What does that mean? We are sharing men. Generally speaking, women are sharing men. And I fought this tooth and nail. I thought, no, that's not true. That's totally not true. And then, I interviewed 1,000 people and I would find, people tell me things. You hear things behind the scenes, right? Oh, this guy is sleeping with 5 different girls, told me they're dating him from my show, right? Because, people talk, whatever. Okay, did they leave if they found out? No, not generally. And then I kept finding that same pattern where women would be cheated on, they wouldn't leave. Women would be cheated on, they wouldn't leave. Even the influencers oftentimes that come on these podcasts and argue for monogamy and that high-value men shouldn't cheat, oftentimes are seeing multiple women and doing the same thing. So, I don't argue from what the world should be, I argue from what it is. Women are not settling for men they're not attracted to, in our words, not what is, right? But the way we would describe it. Women say over and over they're not settling for men they're not attracted to, not making enough money, not tall enough. So what does that leave? Women are sharing men. So if you're in a situation with a guy that is hard to replace, because if we're attracted to a guy, we find 80% of men ugly, unattractive. So if you're actually attracted to a guy, odds are he's in the top 20% of men. So is the grass going to be greener on the other side if you leave? If you're married to a guy you're attracted to and checks all of your boxes and you leave, odds are you're probably not going to remarry and it's probably not going to be better. If you want to leave, that's fine. More power to you. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's your life, not mine. But that's the way the world is going.
What do you say to there's a belief and there's a long-held belief that men value what they see visually a lot more than women. That women are attracted to confidence, intelligence, masculinity, protection, provider. Mm-hmm. And again, visual is part of the equation, but for men, it's at the top of the equation. And for women, it's maybe more in the middle of the equation.
I think that now with social media, it's becoming more visual for women because we're all meeting online. I would agree that confidence helps. I would agree that stuff does play, it's not like a guy sees a girl and says, oh, her confidence. But men's attraction floor.
No, a guy doesn't say that.
Yeah, I know. That's my point.
Her legs,
yeah.
Her breasts,
but
her eyes.
Men's attraction floor is much lower than women's. So I would argue that men are much more generous physically. And evidence of this would be that most women are overweight now.
There's some truth in that. And man, you're going to take me into you're gonna take. I gotta remember my point here. Stick when I gotta take care of some business, but I want you to remind me that you just said women are more overweight and men don't value looks as much as they used to or anything. But let me take care of a little business here. As we sit here today, the lives of babies still in the womb hang in the balance. I want to talk to you for a minute about the most important pressing issue of our day, the lives of the unborn. They need our help. The Ministry of Preborn empowers young expectant mothers in crisis to choose life. Preborn has rescued hundreds of thousands of babies' lives through ultrasound. When a woman considering abortion visits a preborn center, she gets to hear her baby's heartbeat and meet that precious child on ultrasound. And it's a divine encounter. The majority of the time, she will choose life for her baby. I'm proud to be affiliated with an organization that's not only working to save lives, but is succeeding. Preborn has a passion to save unborn babies from abortion and see women come to Christ. Over the past 15 years, preborn centers have counseled over 450,000 women considering abortion, and over 200,000 babies have been saved. Those are amazing numbers, but we can do more. Will you help rescue babies' lives? To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. Pearl, you just made an argument that things have become more visual because of social media and because of these apps and how we're dating. And I think you're 1,000% on point. I think that's a profound point. Instagram has changed everyone. And we're swimming in visual information all the time. And I think like where you really took me is like the issue you're talking about women being heavier, that's most acute with Black women. And so I'm wondering if your point of view, given where you've been living and you've been working with a Black staff, has that skewed your perspective?
No.
You think white guys are experiencing the exact same? Glenn's over there nodding his head.
I'm positive because I have such an international point of view. I have probably a more international point of view than any other podcast because I've done shows in Miami, same thing, panels in Miami. I've done street interviews in Miami. I've done panels. I did street interviews in Nashville. I've done street interviews in London. I've done them in California. I've done them in Chicago. I can't even count. Like I have, and being in London, I've interviewed Italian women. I've interviewed Spanish women. No, it is a problem across the board. Even countries that are generally known for having, more beautiful like women, like Eastern Europe, Russian, in general, the obesity rate is still going up, and it's still much higher than it was even 10 years ago.
So there are your argument that women should, to some degree, tolerate cheating. There have been people.
It's not they should, they do. They do and they will. Because that's the way the world's going.
That's just a fact.
Yeah.
So that's not even debatable.
And
your argument has never been like, just clarify for me, your argument hasn't been like, hey, women move on, the guys are gonna cheat, just learn to manage.
I don't think you should ever really make a decision based off of what some person on YouTube. I think sometimes as influencers, they want to play God. It's your life. You can pick what you want to do as a woman. If you don't want to put up with it, okay, not my problem. You have to live with it. But the grass probably isn't going to be greener on the other side, is my point.
That's a hard argument to go up against. To me, the conversation is like your comments. According to you and according to this conversation, they are taken out of context. And I can relate to that because many of my comments are taken completely out of context. But it's still, I want to ask this question, and I feel much more confident and comfortable asking this question having met you in person. Before I met you in person, my question to you would be strongly like, Pearl, are you saying women should tolerate it because you don't fit this beauty stereotypes? And I'm probably not the first to ask you that question.
Yeah.
And so, and the reason why I say I was more committed to that question beforehand and I told you this before the show, you look different in person than you do on camera. And I talked to you before the show. I was like, hey, who's doing your camera work? Who's doing the lighting? Because even before Pearl went into makeup with our team here or whatever, when I first met Pearl, I was like, this is Pearl? Because what I see on the internet doesn't look like what's walked in the door here and walked here on camera. You don't have an attractiveness problem. And I think many people think that you do. And I'm talking about, and I'm just, guys, I'm keeping it real here, and I'm not simping, I'm not hitting on Pearl. I'm telling you, when she walked in the door, I was like, that's Pearl? Pearl has a beautiful face. And I think it comes across on camera here. A lot of times what I see on the internet, you don't look like this person. And again, you didn't come in here all made up, but you look different, and you certainly look different now. But I still want to add, because you're 6 foot tall, and because you're not, 5'6", 120 pounds, does it, some would argue it's like, no, Pearl's not confident. She doesn't think she can keep a man.
Well, I think most people are average. So I don't think it's an insult to be a normal looking chick. No, it doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from, I interviewed 1,000, sometimes I go on these shows and I just get frustrated because I'm like, you guys haven't seen what I've seen. This is what is happening. This is the way the world is going. And you can either say, change the world, you're gonna go crazy. You're gonna go crazy. You can't change the entire world, or you can kind of accept the way it's going. You might not like it, but what else are you supposed to do? I can't switch the fact that we're only attracted to 20% of men. Okay, I can't change that. I can't change the fact that half of women, by 2030, this is 6 years away, half of women are gonna be single and childless. This was a study done by bankers, not people that have a political agenda. So if you're married, women are gonna be fighting for whoever you got. They're gonna be, and the women already do that. Women want to be, I always say though, if we banned side chicks, if we made it illegal or something, the first people that would complain are women. There are women that go to NBA games trying to get men to cheat on their wives. This is, if you have a guy that other women like, that's just what it's gonna be. And, I didn't make that world. This was the fault of our grandmothers and great-grandmothers. I didn't do it.
Glenn, I'm asking you to jump in because I need some help processing what Pearl is saying, or just a few seconds, and I want to hear another guy's opinion. You buy Pearl's argument that women are only attracted to 20% of men?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it this way. We see women have an attraction to, it's not just physical, but it's also status, charisma. Yeah. It's that high value guy kind of look. Does he have the look? Does he have the lifestyle? Today, women don't marry the man, they marry the lifestyle. So they're attracted to the lifestyle that you offer them, not so much the man. So if the guy at Subway making sandwiches, they probably are not going to recognize Billy over there, the sandwich artist. But you know what? Channing Tatum, they know who he is. All women know who Channing Tatum is. But Billy, nobody knows who Billy is.
And 1 out of 3 men under 30 haven't had sex in the past year, or virgins or haven't had sex in the past year. What does that mean? Women are sharing men. And you see it preemptively, because what do we have? We have situationships. What is that? It's sharing a guy. So I didn't create this world. I'm just telling people what's gonna happen. This is happening. It's already happening. It's just not out in the open yet.
You don't think there are some people exiting the sexual Olympics or taking a break from the sexual Olympics because it's become too community? It's become too...
Some men are.
Yeah.
Women? Not really, no. I'm sure there's some, but...
You don't think women are bothered by the fact, man, everybody
no, because we're picking it.
has hit that, or
For the guy?
women aren't sitting there saying, man, that dude has slept with.
Oh no, women are throwing. Look at Drake. He gets panties thrown at him on stage. Women are not. Women are not.
Millionaire that's celebrated. I'm talking about. Let's move off of the celebrities and just everyday people.
Again, I don't. You could ask women and they'll say one thing, but I look at what are we doing as a group.
It's social proof.
I don't. So I'll give you an example. because a lot of times they'll say, you should just go find a religious church girl. Sounds good, right? What percent of women are waiting till marriage? It's like 3%. Out of the 3%, what are overweight? I don't sell dreams here. That's not my. I can't. That's not my business. Women are sharing men. It's not that I want them to. It's not that we should. It's what is happening. And I'm sure these guys. Are you guys under 30? Under 30? I mean, I'm sure if you ask any guy that's under the age of 30, like they can see it in their high school. Women go for the same guys.
Well, they could certainly see it. Anytime an app like Tinder has any popularity, that speaks to like people have no standard. If you're just swiping left and right and hooking up, and again, or if you're just hitting someone's DM and they're hooking up, there's a lot of truth. And again, when Brittany Renner is kind of a respected celebrity that gets to go on platforms and tell her story and gets to lie and say, I've only slept with 37 men, or I slept with or whatever the number she threw out. Got to about triple that, or maybe even quadruple, or maybe take it times 10. There is definite truth to what you're saying.
It's true. It's not like it's just what's happening. But the problem is I get with conservatives is they want us to not live in like what's happening.
Well, no, I would take, and I'm not a conservative. I consider myself a Christian. I want us to course correct and realize that all of this sexual promiscuity has direct impact on all the chaos, all of the perversion towards children, all of that our lack of discipline, our lack of responsibility as it relates to sex is contributing to a moral decay that's impacting us in every aspect of our life.
And I want to be a millionaire, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So that's what I mean. It's like we could talk about a wish list, but it's not. There's no indication that that's going to happen. If anything,
it's a very nihilistic.
It's not
attitude in terms of, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. I just want to talk about what's happening, and so just go with it.
I didn't say just go with it. What's your plan? Change it.
Well, my plan is.
How has your plan gone the last? Like you've been doing this longer than me. How's your plan gone?
Well, you got to understand. There's only. I'm working on me.
Exactly.
No. I'm working on me.
Yeah.
And so there's been improvement with me. And that's all I can really worry about and concern myself
Correct.
with.
That's true. And that's what I'm saying too. Like you can't change the world. This is the way the world is going. And then give me one data set that indicates it's going the other way.
No. Now you're asking, that's two different questions. Can we as individuals change the world? Yes. Me being more obedient to God, me looking at the person in the mirror and wrestling with him, I believe it has great impact on the world. And I hope that I'm going to inspire you and Luke and David and Glenn to say, you know what, I'm going to go home and work on me too. And so that, I don't want to say you're not religious because you are, or that you're not a believer, but again, Jesus Christ, 12 people, 12 disciples, and changed the world. And so I don't have this belief or expectations. Happiness is all based on expectations. And so I'm not expecting, well, Jason's going to fix him, and then he's going to look up and there's going to be this set of data points that have all improved. I'm going to look at one set of data points. And so every day I get on the scale and try to eat right so that there is a data point on that scale that says, oh, Whitlock lost a half a pound. And that's progress to me. Whether you lose weight or David lose weight
Yeah, but I guess hope isn't a fact. And that's my point, and
I didn't describe hope. I described some results as it relates to me.
Right, but my point is this is just the way the world is, and us talking on a podcast isn't going to change it. And if it was, then you wouldn't see so many single mothers in the conservative movement. We can't even, no, I'm serious.
You should readjust your expectations and make them more realistic. That would be fact-based as well.
Not for me, I'm talking about the world.
Got it, but I'm saying I'm not doing this podcast thinking the world is going to change. I'm hoping that I change and that the people closest to me that work with me on a daily basis, I hope that they change. And then I hope when they go out into the world and deal with other people that their behavior will help inspire someone else to change. It's just a set of dominoes, and there's billions and billions of dominoes, trillion dominoes that need to fall in order to get where you at, where, hey, now 90% of people are married. That's not gonna happen in my lifetime, your lifetime.
No, but that's what I mean, again.
Happiness is expectations, though. I think
I'm a happy gal.
I know, I'm not saying, but you could set a standard that we'll never meet and then say, well, see, that's pointless.
Yeah.
Why do anything?
I don't say why don't do anything. People can change their lives personally, but if I had to, if I come back here in 5 years, this is what I would predict. This is not what I want to happen. This is what I think is going to happen, and the data that I have seen indicates that it's going to happen. Half of women will be single and childless, okay? Out of that other half, let's say a third are single mothers, okay? Half of women aren't gonna have kids. Bankers, economists, that's what they're betting on. I think they're probably smarter than me. Let's say they're right. Take the other half, a third are gonna be single mothers. I think that is actually pretty low. But we're gonna be so generous to women today. A third will be single mothers. Leave the 2/3 that are left. Let's say that the rest get married. Half of them will divorce. That leaves maybe 10, 20% of people in stable family units.
And so, are you not aware that I think there are people working and have been working to make that a reality?
If they were working, the laws for marriage would be different.
No. These negative results that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm arguing that people have been working to produce those negative results.
Oh, yeah, fine.
And so that's what I'm arguing. And they've been working for, let's say, 100 years.
Oh, yeah, more than that, yeah.
But we'll just,
Yeah.
we don't have to go beyond our ability to comprehend. But let's say they've been working for 100 years. And so to get the results that they're getting, because the results used to be different. And so it's gonna be a 100-year process of working the opposite direction to produce better results. That's what I'm trying to be a part of.
So I believe that the only way you are going to get that is to change the laws first. And right now the
change the hearts.
And right now the strategy is to shame men for not wanting to get married and choosing relationships. Personally, if you ask me, I think you have to change the laws to be more fair. Then I think the other things can happen.
Got you. So, but we're going to get the laws and the government that reflects us. And we are so broken that we're getting when I look at Joe Biden, I don't sit there and say, oh, look how terrible Joe Biden is. I go, man, what did I do to contribute to that guy being the president? He's sniffing children. His daughter is writing books saying he took showers with her, and all of this stuff. He's putting a Supreme Court justice on who can't define what a woman is, and I can sit there and be mad at Joe Biden, but I really go, man, Whitlock, when you was living in strip clubs and chasing 21-year-old nursing students or whatever, you helped do that. This guy reflects who you were, and your whole mindset. And so I believe when we change individually, we'll get better leadership. We'll get better politicians. We'll get better institutions. We'll get a better culture.
Yeah,
It's a process.
I actually don't think it's men's fault at all. I think it's women's fault. Yeah, I know. He's like,
This is where I disagree.
he's like, don't say
Of
that.
course he disagrees because he's read the book of Genesis. and when God shows up, he doesn't say,
Yeah, well, but it's women that's voting him into office. That's the point.
yeah, and it's men who folded. And
So women shouldn't vote.
that's where we're going to go there.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I got in trouble for the same thing. Because
Yeah.
what I think a vote should represent a family. I
Yeah.
don't think, I wish
agree,
they'd
I
take
agree.
my vote away. I'm single. A vote should represent a family. The whole culture should be catering to man, woman, and child. And so a family should have a vote. And so people, they've reconstructed the past and history and convinced you, well, it's just sexism. They didn't want women to vote. Well, no.
No.
The vote used to represent the family.
You're correct, yeah.
Period. End of story. And so we had a country and a set of laws that favored family. Now that they've put this 100 years of work in, we have laws that favor single women and other individuals. And so if they strip me of my right to vote, take it.
Yeah.
One, I've never voted.
You've never voted? You do political media, you've never voted?
Because I'm not in political media. I'm a Christian.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, do I all this stuff of women voting and single guys voting and all this other stuff? No, responsible parents should vote, and our laws should favor them. Period. End of story. And again, I don't.
The reason I think it's women's fault is because it was a small percentage of men that allowed women to vote. So it might have been a small percentage of men, but most men had nothing to do with it, while most women had something to do with leaving the fathers of their children, getting abortions, and voting for politicians like Joe Biden. So if we're going to go battle of the sexes here, most women actually had something to do with it where most men didn't.
Haven't I seen you argue, and isn't there studies that say, like, if you go back to the suffrage movement, that was actually a very tiny, small number of people that most women weren't out in the street saying, hey, I need a vote, I need
There
a
was
vote.
more women that didn't want to vote than did.
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
So,
But once the policies were passed, one out of 3 women's had an abortion now. 50% of children are born into single mother homes. I don't remember the exact number, but it's a majority of kids will be separated from their dad in the first 5 years. Women are picking that. Just because someone puts, if they pay you to do something, it doesn't mean you have to do it. And I think we keep saying that somehow men are responsible for female sin, and I think women are responsible for the sin that we picked. I don't think it's the men's fault. Most men had nothing to do with those policies. Most men born today, they had nothing to do with the policies that are passed, but the women are the ones picking it.
okay, but men, and there's a lot of simps, but we still hold most of the political offices, most of the CEO positions, most of the key decision, and most men are cowards, and they're afraid to stand on what they actually believe because they don't want to be demonized via social media or in the world, or they don't want to live in a 2,000 square foot house. They want to live in a 5,000 square foot house, and so they're going to go along with the lies and the whole deal.
Politicians can't get elected without the female vote now because they're the majority voters and they're the biggest swing voters. So politicians can't even get into office without favoring women. That's the problem that happened when you have the female vote. It's a very small percentage of men that are running companies, and women make 80% of consumer buying decisions. If you look, there's 100 men, what percent own a company? It's a small percentage. Women make 80% of consumer buying decisions, so if they don't market and sell to them, they lose all of their money. For problems that, again, they didn't pick. Neither of your producers, they're born today, neither of them voted or made any of these problems, but we're saying, men, you need to fix problems you didn't create at the expense of the money you make and your job. Tough sell. Maybe you might think that maybe they should, but I think it's a bit unfair. Like, why do men have to fix the problems that women picked?
It's our responsibility.
Why?
Because the Bible and God says so. And that's where I will play the religion card.
Religion.
And it's just factual, though.
But okay, what are they supposed to do?
You understand that, but hold for one second.
Okay.
Again, because I want you to be careful of just kind of coming off like you're ridiculing the Bible. But all of our basis of understanding of what truth is and what facts are, that you're a woman, I'm a man, it all comes from the Bible. And so there has to be some agreed upon foundation of truth in order to organize any society.
What I'm trying to figure out is how that plays in real life. So, okay, you know, someone's wait. So there's a 19-year-old guy. How does he stop women from throwing themselves at the top guys in his school? Most women are not throwing themselves at. So the average guy, that's not an option. How does he stop that? How does he stop the women from getting an abortion? The average guy, what is he supposed to do? You're speaking, I mean, you're pretty successful. Most men are making average money. They're living average lives. I'm trying to figure out, this sounds good, but I'm asking in practice.
Got you. One, people have to redefine what an average life is. Because someone could go look at my finances and say, oh, what an incredible success this guy is. Look at all the money he made. And then you reach my level of understanding and you go, man, this bank account is irrelevant. And so other things have to be attractive. My brother's a college graduate, spent 10 years in the Air Force. He hasn't made near the money that I've made. But if people's minds are trained properly, my brother's more successful than me, far more. Been married for 20 some odd years, has 2 kids, nice home, was an executive at Ford Motor Company. Him and his wife have a business, a real estate business. So it all depends, happiness and success depends on your definition. If it's just about money, yeah, Jason Whitlock's really successful. But if it's about more than that.
I'm saying that the average man oftentimes does not have the opportunity that you're describing because women are chasing the top men. So we're saying take responsibility for these women's decisions when most men have nothing to do with them and can't stop them. That's my point.
Well, if the purpose of your life is to bed women or to get these women that are chasing the top men.
Most men are not bedding women like that. 1 out of 3 men are virgins or haven't had sex in the past year. So that's women, there's far more women sexually active than men. So most men, that's not an option. They don't get a lot of women.
Got it. I'm arguing something different. That that guy needs to look for his one woman and marry her. And again, maybe not by the state, but get in a relationship with her. It's not that hard to get women. It's just not. And I get who they're choosing, and again, I want to be, because I don't want to come off like I'm some sort of bragging or whatever, but man, I've talked some women that I have no business. This is back when I was a much more worldly person, but I talked some women into hooking up with me that just people would be like, how the hell did he do it? Because you can talk a woman into, if you're consistent and persistent, you can talk them into overlooking a lot. Your stupidity, a lot of things.
You've been a Christian for a while, so I'm assuming you haven't really been chasing women like that for some time.
Yes.
Okay, the world is a little different now. And that's the thing. Women, again, social media changed dating and relationships forever.
That's an interesting point.
Women of today are not the women of yesterday. Most are overweight, most have debt. And the problem is with academia, they'll always shield us from information that makes women look bad. anecdotally, I would say 15% of women under the age of 35 are on OnlyFans or do cam work. There's some researchers that
Say that percentage again?
15% of women
15%?
under the age of 35 are on OnlyFans, escorting, or some sort of cam work. Some people argue it's 5%, just as a disclaimer, but that's a big percentage. So there are objectively not enough wives to go around right now. There are not enough marriageable women to go around. So again, like, what are the men supposed to do in the meantime? You know, there's a book called The World Without Men where they, you know, and I think these are reasonable standards, right? If a guy wants a girl that is not overweight, would you say that's reasonable? If she has no debt, reasonable?
That's even tougher. A woman without debt.
Yeah.
She been in a wheelchair all of her life. I mean, if she can move her hands, she's gonna have debt. She has access to Amazon.
Okay. Okay, so men should marry women with debt. I'm asking you, was it unreasonable for a guy to ask for a woman with no debt? You think that's unreasonable?
Unreasonable. It's like, and again, this is lowered expectations, but it's like, it's debt that he can't clean up. That's beyond his ability to clean up. Yes, that should be off limits.
What about tattoos? Is it reasonable for a guy to say, I don't want a woman with tattoos? Is that reasonable?
It's reasonable for some men, and yes, I definitely prefer women with tattoos.
Doesn't hate men. Is that reasonable? They don't want a feminist woman that hates them.
Yeah.
Okay. He ran these numbers. It's less than 5% of women. He put it at 0.5%.
For women under 35?
Under 35. Even if, let's just say he's a big liar, we could even if it's 10%. There's just not enough wives to go around. If they poll Gen Z women and ask, where does marriage and family come in your list of priorities? It's 7th. Like, traveling is above marriage and family. So again, like, these are problems men didn't create, and they can't, there's nothing they can do to stop women that's what they want to do. And I don't think they should be required to clean up their mess after. I don't think they should be required to clean up women's debt.
No, they shouldn't be required, but
when 1 out of 3 women, think about it.
Again, this may be my age, Sean, but because again, women with debt, that's like, well, they're gonna breathe air.
That's a Tuesday.
Well, even you know, what is it? I mean, even like 1 out of 3 women's had an abortion. 1 out of 4 has an STD. 90% have been on birth control at some point. Like, it's like,
you throw in how many of them are vaxxed. It really,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's just not enough to go around.
Bloods out there.
And so when we start shaming men and say they're the problem for not you, but I hear this a lot from tradcons where, oh, you need to man up and get married and have a kid and you don't have a fulfilling life. It's almost like they're putting women as their purpose. I don't think a man's purpose should be women. I think it should be following God and his purpose as a man if he's not religious, you know, but right now there's just not enough wives to go around. And I've interviewed them. I can tell you firsthand, I've interviewed them. I've interviewed women everywhere, I'm telling you.
Let me take care of one more piece of business. And this is I knew the conversation was gonna be good, but this is even better than I thought. Great job, Pearl. Whatever happened to that Texas border standoff, join Jason Buttrell and the Blaze Originals team on a road trip with the Take Our Border Back convoy to the front line of the border crisis as they uncover what was really happening during Governor Greg Abbott's fight against federal agents. Our team reveals the story the mainstream media didn't want you to know. Jason Buttrell and the Blaze Originals team found an alarming way around the Texas National Guard border blockade to show viewers at home what is really going on. Media coverage of Eagle Pass painted an alarming picture of what's going on at the border, but the truth is it's much worse. From a conservative estimate, 5.5 million people have illegally crossed into the United States in the last 36 months, an all-time high. Blaze Originals reveals that the elites on the left, the right, and in the media all have something to gain from the border crisis and why those interests make it appear impossible to actually solve the problem. The mainstream media's narrative didn't pan out on the Eagle Pass crisis, and the Blaze Original team shows you why. Go to blazeoriginals.com and use the promo code BORDERCRISIS to get $30 off your Blaze TV Plus subscription. So, how do you spend a typical day when you're back in the UK and you're not visiting family, you're not in Nashville? Are you just researching stuff, or I don't know, you got volleyball practice at some point?
Yeah.
You got some boyfriend over in America you got to talk to at some. What's a typical day for Pearl?
I'll get up and then I'll make breakfast. I'll eat.
What does Pearl eat for breakfast?
I make
You're an
eggs.
athlete.
I make eggs a lot, like eggs and like I drink a lot of coffee. It's not good. It's like pure sugar coffee. It's probably my like kryptonite. Then I'll usually take my dog. Like I have a dog, so I'll walk her. And then I'll usually prep for like the show. So whatever I'm talking about that night for the
How
show.
do you decide what you want to talk about?
Just whatever comes to my head. So sometimes it'll be something that's trending. Sometimes it's like, I went on Clavin's show.
Andrew Clavin?
Yeah, and so the last show I did that I was really proud of was he said that laws favored men before the 50s, and I knew he was wrong. And so I just did a history of the laws that were against men, that show. Because
Did that with Andrew?
No, it was after. He said it as like an offhanded thing in an interview, and I was like 80% sure he wasn't correct, and I wanted to double check. And so then I did a show just like going through the history of the laws, because most people like wouldn't know. Like, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just whatever, you know, comes to my head that day. Like sometimes I might go through, I want to do a show. I've been asking guys that are like successful or have like options with women. That I know, or just friends with whatever, how their girlfriends and wives have made their lives easier. So I was gonna do a show with their answers, because I think it's like women, you know, we wanna compete for men, so it's like, how can we make the men's lives easier? I'll think of that one day, you know, call people, see what they say. Then, yeah, I'll have volleyball sometimes. Sometimes I'll go like cook dinner or something. I've been learning to cook.
How much reading? Do you read books or how?
Yeah, I read books, or I'll just like research different topics. Like there's a website called gynocentrism.com.
Called who?
Gynocentrism.com.
Gyno.
Yeah, this guy named Peter Wright, he's a really smart researcher. Like gynocentrism, it just basically means
Spell that for me.
GYNOCENTRISM. So it goes through the history of like gynocentrism, which is basically deferring to women's authority over men's, which is 1,000 years old. Like a lot of people don't know the history of chivalry. It's actually sort of an inversion that women took over, because they used to bow to kings and knights, or I can't remember where in the feudal process, but they would kneel to them, and then instead of that, women came in and said, kneel to me. So actually proposing is sort of inverting the natural order of the world, where women wanted an elevated status.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and
I say this is what's interesting. You don't know much. You should interview some Israelites, because it's like there's a pastor here in Tennessee that's kind of popular around the country named Pastor Charles Dow.
Yeah.
And I've seen their wedding services, and it's the total reverse. The man is I think the man's at the altar waiting on the one. It's all a celebration of the man. She's excited about and what she's done to get this man that's worthy of her. I mean, it's the total reverse. You go to their church, and the men all sit up front and are the most passionate worshipers. The women are in the back, basically taking care of the kids. Anyway.
Romantic love used to be forbidden. So it's interesting, because conservatives will always say, let's go back to traditionalism. And my question is, what tradition? Because romantic love used to be forbidden. It used to be that they would, it was, I can't remember the ins and outs of it, but it was something with, it was tied to land when you got married, and it was arranged marriages. And then basically there was a guy that made this popular. I can't remember his name off the top of his head, but basically all of the romantic love stories and stuff that we see in the media started like 1,000 years ago. It wasn't really common before that. So I really view even like chivalry as an inversion of the natural order of the world, because I think that the natural order of the world should be God, men, women, children. So when you're even proposing to a woman, you know, you're serving her. And even like traditionalism at its core, it's like, let's make more money so the woman can stay home, but it never talks about what she has to do to earn it or deserve it. In general, like, let me hold her door. When I view femininity at its core as serving men, and I think masculinity is being selfish. Like, I think it's like serving yourself, God, or your purpose. So I think a lot of times, like, the stuff that's pushed is really just, it's like opposite.
I want you to repeat that again, just for clarity, because
Yeah,
I think
sorry, I'm going kind of
No, it's not because of you. It's because some of these thoughts are original and people need to hear them more than once to fully digest. And so you say femininity is serving man, and masculinity is what?
It's more selfish,
Masculinity
or serving God or your purpose. Because I think that well, because not everyone's religious, so I'm trying to.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're putting them on equal planes.
I guess, but like when I think of like a masculine man, I think of someone that he is going to do what he is going to do, regardless. Women can't sway him. Like, I think of maybe Trump. He's going to run for president. He doesn't care what everyone else says. There's no woman that's going to stop him. He is running for president. He's saying what he's going to say. Like, that's what I think of.
Yep.
Where when I think of femininity and the women that truly embody femininity, not just these feminine coaches, they're not asking for princess treatment. Like, when I think of the most feminine women, I'll think of like a grandmother or great-grandmother. What made them feminine? They served everyone around them. They had, grandma's cookie recipe. And there's something, you go there and you just feel warm. They're like, hi, how are you doing? They have this soft tone. But it's nothing to do with like dresses. It's nothing to do with makeup, because all that stuff is selfish because you're focused on yourself. I think femininity is more to do with your character. Because when I think of the grandmothers and great-grandmothers, they never had the latest fashion trends. They never had a caked on makeup. And even there's one woman that I know that I think of as like a super feminine woman. I mean, she's in pants all the time. She's like a farmer's wife. But what her husband says goes, and she bends over backwards to make him happy. I think that's femininity at its core, is serving your husband, or maybe your father if you're not married, or the men in your life.
Do you see yourself as feminine?
I do. See, I have a ways to go. I need to improve on it, I think. But I would say, yeah, in my relationship, yeah.
And do you do much self-evaluation and discussing of yourself in your content? Or is it all just talking about the people you've talked to? There's nothing wrong with either one. Because again, I'm starting to like, you're some sort of relationship journalist, and that's how you probably need to see yourself and brand yourself, because I think that's accurate. But is it an evaluation of Pearl publicly and talking about that a part of what you do or part of your content?
I have, but the problem with it is sometimes people harass. Like, that's kind of where I get a little nervous too when even like on this podcast, let's say, like, it's like
this one right here.
Yeah, when we're talking about my relationship, it's like sometimes I like stuff to be like private.
Yep.
But usually I will. I just won't talk about it till like a year or two later, just so it's.
Well, see, I think there's ways to talk about yourself without talking about your relationship.
Yeah.
It's just talking about your journey and the things you've realized about well, I used to think this, and that was actually foolish. And you know how I learned that? Because of this situation or this conversation. I guess I'm suggesting it as it's a way to soften and make yourself a tiny bit more relatable. It's not that you're not relatable, but people have put you in this little box. Like, Pearl's just a little troll machine, and she's gonna hit Twitter, and she's gonna say these provocative things about other people, and they're missing, perhaps intentionally, but perhaps you're not doing, putting enough effort into showing people just how thoughtful you are. Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, okay, I could see that.
You are thoughtful, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm thoughtful.
Yeah, you're putting you can't be, I don't think Glenn or anybody's got puppet strings up your rear end. You're putting a lot of thought into this because, I've pushed you here and I've seen you pushed on other places. And you, generally speaking, have something thoughtful to say in response. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but you have put some thought in it. And but again, anybody that's speaking truth is going to be mischaracterized and demonized and smeared. But Pearl, you're more thoughtful than I thought, and I'm so glad you stopped by and you came to Nashville. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I certainly did. I think, unless you got anything, did I not ask you something? Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? Did you want to take a shot at Jeremy Boring before you got off here?
Oh, I didn't want a shot. I think it's kind of, I'll give my shot.
Yeah.
I think it's a little dramatic to say you're going down a dark path because of tweets.
He did tweet that out.
I think sometimes on Twitter, it's like, I read this stuff and I'm like, what? I'm not doing drugs. Like, I'm tweeting. So I think sometimes we kind of over dramatize things, but I hope you don't take my criticisms of some of your talking points as me disliking the company, because I don't.
All right, we'll end on that note. Thank you, Pearl. We'll play tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I want